Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Aaron Freed. I work on the marketing team here at Kubecost, and really excited to introduce you all to Chris Reynolds on the solutions engineering team to chat a little bit more about the color of money. So over to you, Chris. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Color of money. So, did some introductions. I'm going to start speaking, so I'm going to turn the camera off so you guys can see the presentation. And then we will go from there. So we're going to talk about money isn't green, death by spreadsheets, life finds a way, get into a little demo, and then the finale. So what is the color of money? So it's a term that was born out of public sector to categorize money, and it's something that we just kind of stuck with. It is used now kind of globally between commercial and between public sector, but it was started there. It started as a kind of a duty reference to refer to an appropriation category, but in the grand scheme of things, what does it mean? It just means what is the money earmarked for, or what is the color of it? So you've got R&D, O&M, task orders, programs, black budgets, business units, applications, application owners, however you want to call money, money. That's what we refer to when we talk about the color of money. So going to this lovely world that is the cloud, how do we keep track of money? If I'm given a budget of $1 million for an application to run it for an entire year, on-prem, that was super easy, right? Moving to the cloud with variable costs, how do we track those? So how most folks do it today is unfortunately through backward-looking financial reports, right? So kind of done quarterly, and capacity planning is done to meet those needs. So we get the previous quarter's costs of our cloud spends, and then we kind of do some forecasting for the next few quarters to organize the budget to meet the demands of the cloud and demands of the application that's being used. So how things worked on-prem do not work for the cloud. This leads to kind of a budget overrun, aka what we call cloud sticker shock. Then all of a sudden, your application is out of budget for the year, and it's a whole whopping 5 months in. So, what does that actually look like? It kind of looks like this, right? I need no explanation of what this is, right? Nobody can make sense of this. And this was taken from a customer that took 45 minutes to explain their chargeback model. And this was their chargeback model. So this is what they ended up giving the end users as their bill at the end of the month and per quarter. So, data without context is meaningless. And, this was down to one individual to run these models in an Excel spreadsheet to provide the money, what they owe in terms of their fair share of the bill. And, this doesn't scale. This is not a collaboration. It's very top down. It's hard to share the data this way. You get your bill from the cloud provider, and it's a single line item. Your Kubernetes spend was X. Well, yes, but I had 10 different applications, and what was their share of those costs? It goes back to, we do this to figure out what their cost is, and you come to some number. It doesn't really work, and it doesn't really scale. So how do we make life easier? How do we go from hitting the wall of death by spreadsheets to a happy little cloud? So let's talk about data-driven decision-making and how we can achieve this for a more real-time kind of a feedback effect. At the end of the day, it's going to start with culture change. So this lovely slide came from the Finops framework. And they have some lovely resources on their sites and explains what it is. So you're probably wondering, what the heck is Finops? Great question. It's this diagram. Everybody understand it? Cool, we'll take a minute to absorb it. All right, moving along. Kidding. So what does it do? So Finops brings financial accountability to what is ultimately a variable spend model of the cloud versus where your old school on-prem, which was your kind of a fixed cost, the cloud is very variable. It's a cultural practice. It allows teams to manage their costs while everyone takes ownership of their cloud usage, supported by a central best practices group. So these cross-functional teams are made up of like engineering, finance, product, et cetera, and they work together to enable a faster product delivery, while at the same time gaining more kind of financial control and predictability of what their spend is going to be. So regardless of that, like it is a practice of bringing, like I said, this accountability at a cultural change level to that variable spend, and then enabling distributed engineering and business teams to make those trade-offs between speed, cost, and quality in their cloud architecture and their investment decisions. It's really more about making money than kind of saving your tax dollars. It allows you to kind of drive more revenue. It gives you a larger customer base growth and allows you to kind of release and fail faster. So allows you to have a quicker release cycle at the end of the day. It's about removing these blockers that prevent you from delivering what it is you need to deliver for the line of business. It empowers your engineering teams to deliver better features, better quality app, migrate faster, allows for more cross-functional conversations about where to invest and when. And, if you need to kind of scale back and tighten the belts if need be. So it gives you this data, it gives you this culture, and gives you this ability to kind of make these decisions. And it all starts within this kind of crawl, walk, and run that we see here at the top right in the maturity model. So most customers are at the very early crawling stages, if at best, if they're doing anything, if they're not still stuck back in spreadsheets. So starting with these concepts, it allows you to start small, grow and scale, scope out, and increase the complexity as the business value warrants it into a more mature and more functional activity. Taking these quick actions on these small scales and these limited scopes allows your team to assess the outcomes of their actions, get these insights, and to make these decisions at a more granular level to grow and move forward. So how do we get there? So we kind of talk about it in three different ways: visibility, optimization, and governance. And we're really going to kind of heavily look at visibility today. So visibility is, no dollar left behind. Teams, they need to collaborate. Finance and technical teams need to work together almost in near real time as the cloud operates on a per resource, almost a per second basis. Allowing them to work together, will improve their efficiency and their innovation, and it gives them the ability to drive these decisions amongst cost, quality, and speed. So kind of, taking the mentality of the cloud is your driver of innovation, and it allows everyone to take ownership of their cloud usage. Bringing in this accountability and this usage, it kind of allows you to be pushed to the edge with the engineering teams to kind of take ownership of costs from the architectural side of things to ongoing operations. So the entire life cycle of the application that you're running within your environments. The Finops reports that come out of this, and which we'll get into here in a little bit of a demo, should be accessible and timely. So these processes and the sharing of this cost model data, as it becomes available, should be made available to everyone who needs it in a timely manner with, low barrier of entry, giving them these real-time visibilities to autonomously drive, better cloud utilization, which in turn will create these feedback loops, which result in a more efficient behavior. So kind of creating, monitoring, and improving these kind of real-time financial forecasting and planning, in turn will improve the application downstream. So this gives you kind of a central team of multiple practitioners creating this Finops practice that we talked about in the previous slide that the Finops organization champions. It gives you buy-in from the top all the way down to the bottom to the engineers working on the PaaS and the Kubernetes ecosystem every single day who are delivering the applications. So let's move into the demo side of things. Let's hope I am in the demo God's favor for today. So what does our demo environment look like? So just to give you all some context. So we are running 3 different clusters across 3 of the major cloud providers, and Kubecost is running on all of them. Inside of that, we have multiple teams, teams 1 through 4, and then we'll onboard team 5, and each of them are running multiple applications. All right, so to stick within what we're talking about with visibility. So to get to this kind of near time reporting that we're talking about. So right now we're looking at the last 7 days of all the namespaces that are running within our Kubernetes cluster across those 3 clusters. So let's slice it down to today. So as you can see, we've got a couple different applications. All these are different namespaces. So Kubecost itself, staging app, Pacman, Grafana, all sorts of different applications that are kind of building up and culminating into our spend here. So we're pulling back information such as their CPU, their GPU, the RAM, the underlying PV claims, networking, load balancing, shared cost and efficiency for our total cost. So as the PaaS operator, we need to build out these views for each of these teams, so that are concerned at the application level or at the team level. So let's start playing with what the view would look like here. So we're going to aggregate by namespace for this exercise. We're going to create a filter of just the namespace. We're going to say Pacman. We're going to add Pacman. It's the namespace. That's all we care about right now. And if we switch to the multi-cluster view, we can actually see that, Pacman, namespace, Pacman is running across 3 different clusters. So it's the same application across three different clusters on 3 different cloud providers. So we also want to say, as the PaaS operator, we're trying to recover costs for running of our resources. So whether it be the cost of running Kubecost ourselves or running of the the underlying infrastructure tools, Twistlock, Quay, security tools that we're using. So right now you can see shared is at $0. So let's specify the Kubecost namespace as a shared cost. So now we can see here that we're starting to, for today, we're starting to incur these costs for these shared resources amongst the Pacman application for the single application. But we also want to recoup the costs of the contractors that we have that are running the underlying infrastructure in the application. So let's just make up a magical number here. We'll say 5,000. So now we can see our shared cost has gone up. And this is amongst all tenants within the environment, but just for the Pacman application is what we're viewing. So we can say, let's see, Pacman. So we're going to save this report because this is only a single application view. So if we go back, we turn on our filters again. So we've got 5,000. Let's up it to 10,000 to make some more fun numbers here. We're going to say Kubecost, but let's also add Kube System as a shared resource. So now we can see for today, shared costs have gone up. We can also say, let's say the last 30 days. So now everybody's bearing these costs for the last 30 days of those shared resources that they're running in. But that's not how we organize our line of business. How do we organize our line of business? So let's say by teams or by owner. In this case, we're going to go with owner. Let me go back to single aggregation to make it easier to read here. We'll say owner. All right. So this is the last 30 days by owner. We've got Jesse and we've got teams 1, 2, and 4 for the last 30 days. So right now, let's remove these shared resources. We still keep the $10,000 for the contractor cost. Team 3 has appeared. So this is giving us another view of how we want to distribute these costs based upon one of these buckets and that color of money that we're tracking. In this case, we're going to do it by owners, and we're going to track it by teams. And each of these teams internally consist of multiple namespaces is where we're applying these annotations at. So as you can see here for this team, we've got front end, we've got workloads, deployments, we've got Mongo, we've got the payment system, multiple things are making these up. So we're going to onboard a new team. So right now we've got things sitting in the unallocated workload. Specifically, we're going to look at Pac-Man here. So let's see if the demo gods are in my favor today. So we're going to the namespace of Pac-Man on this cluster. We're going to add an annotation of the owner, and we're going to call it team 5. We're going to hit save and close. We're going to update that. To speed things along, we're going to kick the Kubecost cost analyzer pod. And that way it will pick up the new labels that we've added, the new annotations. So this will go down. We'll get a 503 Nginx error. Now we're all going to awkwardly stare at OpenLens until it comes back up. So let's see. Let's play with one of these polls that I created earlier today. Cool. Cloud cost today. Let's launch this one. So where are you guys sitting today? You're Finops Pro, you sit in spreadsheets, nothing. Why am I here? So I'll give you a few minutes to answer that while these containers come back up. All right, so we got our answer. Spreadsheets is the most common. Fun. My condolences will end the poll now that the containers have come back up. So let's see. Huzzah. And there is team 5. The demo gods are in my favor today. So now we've onboarded that new application. We tagged the Pac-Man namespace with it. So now we can see that this is sitting with his allocations for Pac-Man and Mongo and the associated costs that are with it there. But if I'm onboarding these new applications, how do I know how much they're actually going to cost me? So let's look at a few things on the CLI side. So less large.yaml. So we have a new feature called predicting cost resources, or predicting deployment resource cost, essentially. So you describe your application in a spec file. So in this case, we're giving it the labels, its names, number of replicas, CPU, memory, and the sizing that we need. Obviously, this is very made up in terms of what it's actually going to cost to run. We run it as a kubectl command today against the infrastructure. And it's going to come back and say, based upon your previous spend, here's your monthly deltas for these costs, and then the total estimated monthly cost upcharge. Now, obviously, it's not going to cost us $10,000 a month to run Pac-Man, but for the sake of this exercise, that's what it's going to cost to run Pac-Man. So we have the ability as we onboard these new applications, and even as a current tenant, they go through the application lifecycle when they're going through, I have this much money to spend in our bucket, in our color of money. How do I keep track of it? How do I predict what my cost is going to be in the future? And this is starting to allow, tenants of your environment to do these costs. In addition, say you don't want to, absorb it from the UI. We can pull it from the API. So we can say in this case, give me the last month. We're going to aggregate via the namespace. We're still going to say kube cost and kube system are the aggregate shared costs. And then we're going to also give a shared cost of 5,000 for that contractor recovery, cost recovery, essentially. So this gives us all of that lovely data back in JSON, which I know is not easy to read in this format, but it gives us a way to pull this data in and then kind of bring it into a tool in our toolkit that we need, whether it be like Power BI or Tableau. In addition to that, you have the ability to start setting up these budgets. So where am I within my spend and tracking my colors of money and my buckets of money? So in this case, whether it be a namespace or a filter, we can create one. So I created here on Pac-Man earlier. We'll delete this guy. Let's create a new budget role called Pac-Man, if I can spell right. On the namespace, Pac-Man will be the target. Namespace will say weekly amount of, we'll say $25. We'll hit save. So now it's added it down to our budget aggregation at the bottom. You can see for the Kubecost namespace, we've exceeded our budget, but within the Pac-Man namespace, we are still within our budget targets for that time frame that we set up of weekly. Well, with that, we have reached the end. I thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Hope everybody has a good one.